This is the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast, hosted by David Charlton, and you're listening to this podcast to help you build your own mental toughness, or so that you can support other people or your clients better. Either way, you will learn more about developing this plastic personality trait that all but guarantees that you will perform better and lead a more prosperous life. Hi there, I hope you've had the luxury of taking a little time off over the Easter period. I certainly have, and I'm feeling refreshed. I'm also feeling refreshed too because I've just jumped out of my ice bath. It's now 412 days in a row, so it's fair to say I'm feeling a little bit chilly at the moment and trying to warm up. One thing I've noted when I've been taking these dips is no dip is perfect. In every dip, I'm always faced with a cold shock response and should I get in, should I not get in type feeling. And this is something that we allude to in this short, bite-sized episode where my colleague, clinical and sports psychologist Alessia Bruno talks about perfectionism today. She goes on to highlight some of the challenges that young athletes and older athletes have when they strive for perfection. And certainly in my work, I notice it's a big, big challenge for a lot of people. I hope you go on to enjoy Alessia's wisdom.
Yeah, I have a client actually. I'm thinking about somebody I have, and she was referred by her parents. She's a minor, so she was referred by her parents, and she was high in perfectionistic striving, but also in concern. And when the two aspects are together, it's not healthy. Can affect self-confidence, performance, motivation. Because, for instance, because our level of concern and worry about failing was really high, on the top of really struggling to set manageable goals, she had all these anxiety symptoms like palpitations, stomach pain, and especially sweaty hands. And for a gymnastic, having sweaty hands is an issue because, you have to grab a ball, grab a ribbon, a ball, a hoop. How are you going to do that? And she was like applying all this mannerism, these unhelpful coping strategies like rubbing her hands, against their outfits. And obviously before a competition, you cannot do that. It doesn't look good, and their coach was getting, was being unhappy about this behavior. And so what she ended up trying to make up for this feeling of inadequacy and anxiety, she was like overtraining. This is something the coach didn't ask her to do, but she was overtraining to compensate this fear of failing. And she thought that by overtraining, she would have got things perfect. But actually, by overtraining, she was getting exhausted, really running the risk to burnout. And she was training for hours that the coach didn't ask her to do, actually. And the parents were really worried because they were seeing that this was affecting their social life as well as the academic grades. They were getting lower, and their mood was being affected. So this situation in gymnastics can happen as well. And in this case, we did like a really good teamwork with the parents as well as the coach. And this is really what you need to do, to work with the system to help the athletes, no matter if it's a minor or an adult, working together it really leads to helpful outcome, to positive outcomes. So at times I see that when they have the tendency to be worried about the outcome, the results, and they feel they're not good enough, their perfectionistic traits make them feel they're not good enough, and they are rigid and controlling, they tend to, to burn out because they become so obsessed, and they will push themselves to the limit that this is really unhealthy, for them. Like when I see like adults who are athletes, most of the time when it becomes a job, I have some athletes who say, okay, today I should train. I don't really feel like, so they need as well to reconnect to that fun part. There is a reason why you chose the sport. You got like great feeling out of it. So you have to reconnect with that too.
Yeah, I think you've hit something quite big there as well, because obviously the perfectionist can get drawn into that striving angle,
Yeah.
and and why they chose to take the sport on initially, and that playful part to it just gets dismissed to one side. So yeah,
And that
definitely a good
reminds
message.
me sorry, David, I was thinking like a turning point with this gymnastic was when I connected to the passion and the fun part of sport. That was a turning point. So it wasn't only about, it wasn't about getting it right all the time and succeed all the time. But I remember on the top of doing like brain spotting or reprocessing, like failure experiences that were still in the present, so that we move the past into the past by processing stuff. I really wanted her to connect to the fun part, but also to the human part, to love herself, no matter if she succeeded or not. And also to remember how much she enjoyed the sport. And before every competition, I used to tell her, have fun. And she was like, what? Like fun? So yeah, because this is the fuel, is what keeps you going. Not so much the achievement, because when you achieve like a medal, for instance, then soon after you're happy about having gained this medal, you start thinking, especially the perfectionistic person starts thinking, okay, now I have to keep, next competition, people expect me to get a medal. So the pressures come back and you stop having fun. That's why to connect with fun is so important. This is the real fuel that keeps your motivation, your passion going.
So Alessia alluded to the fact that the playful side, or the fun element of sport, gets cast to one side if you're a perfectionist, if you're striving for perfection. Now, what I'd like you to do is visualize a continuum. On the left-hand side of the continuum is motivation, drive, determination, and then on the right-hand side is carefree. Now, the perfectionist will likely fall on the left-hand side, the motivated, driven, determined side, and the trap they'll fall into is often trying too hard. Now, if they want to compete at their best, if they want to be able to express themselves freely, to perform with freedom, ideally what you'd like to see from them is some flexibility there. So yes, we want them to be driven, determined, to be showing maximum effort. This is a great quality, but we also want them to be carefree. So moving from one side to the other is going to be a big help for them. If you think about it physically, if they're on the left-hand side and they're driven, determined and giving maximum effort all of the time, their body is likely to be quite tense and rigid. The pictures in their mind are all going to be about trying hard and being busy, being driven, being determined. Yet that calmer, freer, confident performer, the one who sits down, who just chills out, relaxes, and then does their stuff, they just can't see it in themselves. So, as a sports psychologist, that is a huge part of our role when working with athletes and children to be able to free themselves up. There's a number of different ways we go about it, one of which, though, is visualization. So visualizing images there. Images, that fun aspect and the free aspect we're trying to bring out of them. Or again, as an adult, when you first start a sport, when you're expectation free. That's right, we get them to visualize themselves in different situations in their chosen sport or in other leisure activities. They might then compare themselves in competitive situations, training situations and sessions to pastimes when they're just simply having fun. We'd visualize interactions with others where they've got a big smile on their face and what their body language is like, how they're breathing, and what that physical experience is like too when they're loose and they're free. And this is hugely valuable to rehearse in your mind. Personally, I like to run off various different audios for my clients so that they can go back and replay them over and over again. In effect, this is like mental reps, so mental rehearsal. If you think about going to the gym, if you wanted to lift 100 kilos, you can't just do that once and then all of a sudden lift 100 kilos. You've got to practice time and again. So that's where the audio comes in. It becomes a mental training session which can be completed on a regular basis. And in this respect, it's learning how to be playful, how to get that inner child out. And working with perfectionists, people who do strive for perfection, is a big chunk of my work as a sports psychologist. I often do share tips and tricks to help this type of performer in the Mental Edge newsletter, which comes out every couple of weeks. Feel free to sign up to it. You're going to get an awful lot of value there to help you or your child to free up, to relax, and to play your sport with a smile on your face. And when we're thinking about smiling there, I really do hope that your week's a good one and there's plenty of smiles and plenty of laughs. Take care. If you enjoyed this episode of the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast with David Charlton, do check out my website, sport-excellence.co.uk, and my online sports psychology resources. The Sport-Excellence website has essential resources for anyone looking to build their own mental toughness or the mental toughness of their athletes or teams, or if you want to achieve peak performance more often or optimal functioning. The Sport Excellence website has everything you need to keep moving forward and thrive. So go on, head over to sport-excellence.co.uk to find out more.